Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Charity Digital webinar about how to retain donors in a cost of living crisis. No doubt you've heard lots about the cost of living crisis, if not experiencing it firsthand. The rising costs, the scary energy bills, and unfortunately, so much more. For charities, it's a difficult time because demand for services rises in times of crisis. Charities need to balance their fundraising efforts with the need to keep the lights on. How can they maximize donations to serve their beneficiaries while being sensitive to the needs of their donors? As with most things, fundraising, it comes down to the donor experience. Donors are more likely to return if they have had a good experience with you, from finding your donation page to getting that thank you after it's gone through. Retaining donors can be the key to long-term financial sustainability, crucial when the cost of everything is going up. So to help us all, we have joining us today to lead this webinar and share their fundraising expertise is Dean Gillespie, the lead digital marketing and creative services at International Justice Mission UK, and Andrea Gazin, product marketing manager at Salesforce. So Andrea is going to take us through how charities can move beyond the welcome journey and really find out what is important to their donors when interacting with them. Dean will share lessons from his work with International Justice Mission to increase donor retention and increase their digital fundraising. Now, before I pass over to them, just a few notes on housekeeping. Andre and Dean will present for about 30 to 35 minutes, after which we'll go into your questions, which you can post throughout the session in the Q&A section of the chat. To kick things off today, though, let us know where you're joining us up from for today's webinar. We'd love to know where you're coming from and the charity you work for. During this, also, there's tech support available in the chat. Chiara is on hand with any of the issues you may have. Also, recording and slides will be sent out to all attendees after the webinar, so don't panic if you miss anything. We've got you covered. So without further ado, good morning to the both of you. How are you?
Good morning.
Well, thank you very much. Really excited about what we're going to be chatting about in the webinar today. And I hope everybody else is just as excited. Yes,
excellent. Well, I'll leave it to you guys and I'll join you again in the Q&A section.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you all for being here today. We're super excited that you took the time out to hear about what International Justice Mission is doing. And so as Nick already introduced us, I'm going to have Dean tell a little bit about himself. So Dean.
Hi, everyone. As I say, it's really great to be with you today. My name is Dean Gillespie. I'm the Digital Marketing Creative Services Leader in International Justice Mission UK. And I hope, as I said, you're just as excited as I am to be delving deep into this issue and really excited for our time together. Back over to you, Andrea.
So my name is Andrea and I'm Product Marketing Manager at Salesforce.org. And if we look on the next slide, we're going to talk to you today about how to retain donors. And this was obviously always super important, but with the current crisis that we're finding ourselves in, it is becoming one of the most important things to focus on. And so as we already introduced ourselves, let's skip right to the beginning. We're going to have a short part about the Welcome series. Now, we had in the past already with Charity Digital a whole webinar about Welcome series, so we're just going to touch on what IGM is doing. But then we're going to go into the fun part, which is polls. We're going to do a little A/B testing with real tests done in real life by Dean himself. And then we'll talk you through how to tailor for personalization and what you can do next. And as Nick already said, we will have a Q&A where you can ask all your questions. If you have a question specific for me or Dean, please put our name in the chat. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So as you all know, maybe not, Salesforce does a lot of research. And one of our oldest research report is the Nonprofit Trends report. It just came out couple of days ago, so I got this slide very recent, and we're seeing a couple of trends in the sector. Definitely COVID accelerated the shift to digital. As some say, it was not the CIO of the charity, it was COVID that got the digital transformation through. But we also see that still 76% of nonprofits need to develop a data strategy for their organization. And that's quite a high percentage. So we're going to talk about how important data is in retention. We see that 69% of nonprofits find also sharing of data very difficult across departments, and making decisions based on that becomes then also complicated, well, basically as a consequence of that. And so there are a number of other concerns, such as security attacks, but also adopting of remote work policies that make it really important to be able to work with data. So in the next slide, I think it's important to also look at what the donor wants from us. So if we're looking at some of the trends that have really accelerated during the pandemic, we see that there is a rising income equality, a rising digital adoption, but a lower amount of trust. And so this is definitely visible global, but we see it even stronger in the UK. And these have really profound implications for charities. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So if we go to the next slide, we give often a lot of advice to charities. We say, become more agile, strengthen your fundraising, leverage your data, set up secure remote support systems. All really great advice. I think Dean might recognize some of it. We gave it to him too. But then the question is, but how? And so this is why you're here with us today. And so with that, I think we're going to go to Dean.
Thank you so much, Andrea. As I say, it's really great to be with you today. Let me just take you first through a little bit more information about who International Justice Mission are. So I don't know if you know, but today there are more than 50 million people in modern slavery. And International Justice Mission is a global organization working with authorities across the world to end violence against people living in poverty. And we believe that we have a proven model to end slavery, trafficking, and violence, which is to, 1, bring people to safety, 2, bring criminals to justice, and 3, strengthen justice systems across the world. And since 1997, when we were first established, we've brought more than 76,000 people to safety. And we've also seen slavery decrease by up to 86% in places where we've worked. Now, currently, we all know, don't we? The reason why we're here at this webinar is because we're living under a cost of living crisis. And let's be honest, we all know that that is placing difficulties, particularly in our mass fundraising and our overall charities finances. But today, I wanted to encourage you that there is still hope. So don't be dismayed. And by hopefully unpacking some of the things that we've done at IGM UK, I truly hope that you can find some level of confidence that there are still ways to increase donor retention through, for example, examining the latest fundraising trends, understanding the key moments in your supporter journeys, and also what you can do after the initial welcome journey to improve engagement. So just to give you a little bit of context, we've, in the last couple of months, invested in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and for really the key purpose of increasing donor retention, particularly at this difficult point of time. And we wanted to transform our current marketing journey so that we could provide an outstanding supporter experience. We wanted to move away from our manual thanking process, no more handwritten letters, so we could automate our data entry to thank supporters quickly and powerfully. Of course, that being really, really important at the moment, to make sure that our supporters feel valued, respected, and loved. And of course, most importantly, we also wanted to increase our digital fundraising. We wanted to convert more regular givers because we believe that that was a stronger, sustainable form of income rather than other fundraising channels. So we want to do that. And just so you know, for the purpose of this webinar, when we refer to regular givers, we at IGM call them freedom partners. So if I use the word freedom partners, I mean regular givers. But that's what our goals were. But today we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. What are your goals for this webinar? So by magic, the magic of Zoom, apparently a poll will now come up, which will ask you what your expectations from today are. So feel free to put in what your expectations are. And then I think over in due course, we're going to have the poll as well. Keep putting in those answers. And then I think Once that's happened, we're going to put up the answers. A bit like the X Factor, basically. Have we all done that? And here are the decisions, the big decisions. So 21% of you said you wanted to understand about providing better supporter experience. Only 1% about automation. Okay, that one person, well done. 38% convert more supporters to regular givers. That's really good that we're talking about that. And of course, 40% said all of the above. So as we go through that, let's see if we can answer those questions. As Andrea said at the beginning, there is going to be a Q&A at the end. So feel free to keep your questions and we'll do all we can to try and answer them as well. But before we delve a little bit deeper, what do we actually mean by retention? What is donor retention? And today I want to challenge ourselves to think a little bit more ambitiously. So I think it's very, very easy to think of retention as simply the number of people who drop off your email marketing list or your marketing list or simply unsubscribe. However, today I want us to be ambitious and I want to challenge us to think about retention as more about the process by which charities like yours and mine can optimize the engagement of our supporter bases towards specific goals and conversion. So rather than thinking that retention is just around people staying on your supporter list, let's think about how we can turn our subscribers and convert them, or that they can continue to be involved with your charity's work, that they are loyal supporters and strong proponents and advocates in your movement. So I want us to really think about retention in its broadest form, that it's not simply about reducing the average rate of your drop-off rate or your unsubscribe rate, but also how can we today learn more about how we can improve our marketing by increasing open rates, increasing click-through rates, increasing overall conversion rates and donations from our supporter base. Now, if there's anything I want you to remember from today, it is the analogy of a watch, because, wait for it, drum roll please, it's time to focus on retention. See what I did there? Cliche, okay? And today I've even got a physical representation of that watch with me. I must admit, my watch doesn't even work at the moment, so I'm going to have to go to the repair shop, but I hope you can forgive me for that. But we're going to be thinking about how do we increase our journeys to more personalization and high retention through this analogy of the watch. So what does that mean? So W stands for how do we welcome our supporters via our journeys. A stands for how we analyze and adapt our content through A/B split testing. We're also going to be looking at T, which is tailoring our emails through personalization and segmentation. And that's what we're mainly going to be concentrating on today, because that's our key focus. But it's also important that we develop later how as a charity you can capture inactive subscribers for reactivation, really, really important part of any retention strategy, as well as also harnessing your data through reporting. And that's really, really important to optimize engagement and your charity's communications as well. So I'm just going to start off today by just introducing what we have as a welcome journey at International Justice Mission UK. And just to give you that context, this welcome journey is for new subscribers, new supporters who are coming to the IGM UK mission. And our purpose is to convert them to monthly recurring giving, if not to donate on a one-off basis. So here is the IGM UK welcome journey. As I said, this is for new subscribers, and you can see that it lasts for a maximum of about 10 days. So in addition to an automated thank you, which new subscribers get at the point that they sign up, we basically welcome new supporters straight away on day one with a welcome survey email, which is a questionnaire designed to understand supporters better, to understand their preferences and why they might have signed up to follow IGM UK in the first place. And as I'll show later, we also followed this welcome survey email with a direct, regular giving ask. And yes, we're not talking about being bold and ambitious. I said on day one, when we had new subscribers, we asked them for a regular giving ask. We asked them for to become a regular giver on the first day. Just explaining this welcome journey a little bit more, we then put in place a kicker email, which is basically just a follow-up email for people who did not open the original email on day one, that welcome survey email, which we saw through analysis had a higher open rate. And as I'm sure most of us will know, when someone signs up to your marketing list, that's when they're the most engaged. So why not send them the most dynamic thing that you have? But just so for the context of this welcome journey, that means that there's that the journey is divided between those who opened the first email and those who didn't open the second email. So that is represented by the ones, the dates in blue are those people who opened the first email, and the dates in purple are those who didn't open the first email. Just moving on, there's also our journey, welcome journey includes a video email, which basically contains an introductory video asking people to share this video with their family, with their friends, with their own communities. And that's followed by two more emails, which is around a case study email, which it highlights a story of our work with a direct donation ask, which could either be a regular giving ask or a one-off donation ask. And then on day 9 and day 10, we ask again supporters about a Freedom Partner ask, which is a regular giving ask. And as I said at the top of this webinar, you might have realized we're quite bold. We're pretty bold in our welcome journey because we're asking supporters for up to basically 4 times a donation ask in 10 days. So I just wanted to show that welcome journey to you. And here's really the best example, I think, of how really making sure that you're being bold and ambitious, even during these times of the cost of living, pays dividends. So one of the best examples is, as I was saying, is that we, in our first email, we sent a welcome survey, a questionnaire, which then from that, we were able to offer tailored donation asks based on the basis of those questions. And so again, we asked people a series of questions about, for example, what inspired you to sign up to IJM? What interests you about IJM? These types of questions, which of course is all good data for future campaigns and for future personalization. The second image on your screen there, it shows that we followed this up by a direct donation ask. And we really believe that this level of interest in supporters, why they signed up, what their preferences were, accounted for why we had a 200% increase in donations. That's both regular and one-off donations from this welcome email compared to our previous welcome emails that we did at IJM UK. And I think for all of us, this is our lessons from IJM UK, but just at the point where we are in the cost of living crisis, just to understand how supporters, showing supporters that we care, and also being interested in why they joined the charity and cause, really, and taking that time to understand them is really, really significant. So maybe that's something that you want to think about, how you can improve donor retention during this time by actually taking time to understand why have people signed up in the first place and how can you tailor that to your donation asks. Moving forward, A is for analysing and adapting your content through A/B split testing. And I think it's really important in any charity, and certainly something that we've seen work at IJM UK, is creating a culture of testing and implementation. So for today, I don't want you to think about education, 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 nor do I want you to think about growth, 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 but I want you to think about test, test, test. And we've tried to constantly use A/B split testing. So that's comparing different one variable in your emails or your marketing lists, that they should be different. So it could be something like the difference in a subject line, or it could be a difference in a call to action with an email, those types of things. And really to discuss these results with your team. for example, when we saw that survey, why are people clicking or opening that email more than others? And so we really think it's important that even at this time, small changes can make a huge difference. So I want to take you through, and this time we're going to need your participation. So I hope that you're ready for this. We're going to take you through some examples of what we did at IGM UK. And just so before I go into this a little bit more detail, it's worth noting that obviously this is for our experience. It may be different in your case, but we hope that really we can learn something together. Hopefully there's some lessons that we can learn from each other. So for example, we did A/B split testing. So we tested different sender profiles. And one was from a wonderful advocate of ours, a survivor of trafficking called Courage Hope. And we also then sent out the same email with the name of an IGM UK staff member. And we wanted to understand which one increased email open rates. So do you know what? We're going to ask you now, as part of this participation, which one of these emails, these sender profiles, do you believe increased email open rates the best? So is it option A or is it option B? There we go, and a poll comes up straight away. Let's see what you all think.
Magic, that poll that just pops up.
I know, it is amazing. Keep those answers coming in. So again, is it option A, Courage Hope, or is it option B? I feel like a quiz master here now. Is it option A or
little
option
music,
B? Yeah, it's a little bit of music background. Great. And hopefully those answers will appear at some stage, so we can know what those answers are. So 89% of people said we thought it was Courage Hope, the survivor of trafficking, and David Westlake, the CEO, at 11%. Well, you know what? For our experience, unfortunately, the majority are wrong. We saw a 4.9% increase from our communications, which were sent from our CEO. The reason why we believe that is because usually our communications are sent from our CEO. So we believe that brand recognition and that loyalty had an impact upon which emails people clicked on or opened. So maybe that's something you want to test in your own organizations, particularly around donor retention and making sure that people convert and open your emails and your marketing as well. So something to think about. As I say, these are small changes, but we'll come on to see how these can make huge differences.
And no supporter base is the same. So this is not a golden rule.
Absolutely. As I said at the top of the webinar, these are just our results, not necessarily yours. So this is just an example, a flavor of what we're seeing at IGM UK. Okay, let's go on to the second one. We need your participation again. So we also wanted to test different calls to action to understand what increased click-through rates. And just so the context of this is a recent Freedom Partner giving campaign, so our regular giving campaign. And we basically sent out different calls to action, buttons in our emails, and we wanted to see which one worked better to increase click-through rates and then hopefully the conversion of new donors. So again, option A, become a Freedom Partner now. Option B, help bring trafficked children to safety. Or C, I want to protect children today. So again, in your poll, do you think it's A, B, or C? We really do need that music, don't we?
Well, I'm not a very good singer, so let's not do that.
No. I'm thinking about sort of who wants to pick the Air theme song.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I was about to come in with the countdown music, but I thought better not.
Oh no, Nick, you should have. You should have.
Maybe later.
Wonderful. Well, if anyone actually in their own, of the 123 people that are with us, want to play the countdown music in their own homes, feel free, because this is exciting stuff that you want to do at your lunchtime. Okay, we've got the answers. Okay, people thought 17% of people thought become a freedom partner, 24% of people thought help bring trafficked children, and I want to protect children today was 59%. On this occasion, the majority are correct. We saw a 0.7% increase on our call to action around I want to protect children today. And we believe that's because there was a form of agency given to the individual. So the email was, when you're reading the email, you're placing the donor or the supporter in that email, rather than maybe talking about general concepts of your work or the concept of a freedom partner, or becoming a freedom partner. So again, this is our case study. It might be different in your case study, but it's worth thinking about how you can test different calls to actions to increase click-through rates, and therefore, obviously, even during this difficult period, to improve donor retention. There are other ways that we've increased this, or we wanted to test our marketing to improve and drive forward supporter engagement. So one of the ideas that we had as part of the Freedom Partner campaign was to offer incentive-based marketing. So how do we, at the moment, IGM UK, as you might need to think, want to think about this for your own charity, how can you distinguish and sort of differentiate yourself from other charities about your donation ask or your regular giving ask? So we came up with a proposition, which was that if you sign up to be a Freedom Partner regular giver by the 18th of October, of course, a time-sensitive offer, we'd give you a free IGM Chili water bottle as a special thank you. Now, out of interest, we tested one email which had no incentive-based marketing, and then we tested the other, which had one. And we were really pleased to see the results that ultimately, and I think it's there, I can't see it, there, 9.8% of click-through rate for the incentive-based marketing. So again, even though things are difficult at the moment, maybe you want to think to yourself, how can we distinguish ourselves or differentiate ourselves with the propositions that we have? So not just simply, this is our work, this is why you should give, but actually, how do you even incentivize that even further to improve your donor retention? Also, of course, at this moment in the cost of living crisis, we know that people's funds and their resources are really tight, and it's quite difficult for people to give. So we wanted to really also test on our online platforms, what level of regular giving should we go to ask people, and what prompts should we use? So we've been doing that constantly over the last couple of months, and we've had monthly donations of 10 to 20 to 40, goes on. Basically, we've done lots and lots of testing. Not surprisingly, we've seen that when you give the option for people to give less money, they tend to go with that. But then we also felt that, particularly at the cost of living crisis, even if we wanted to convert more people, maybe it was better to convert them at a lower average gift amount now, and maybe upscale them later, rather than not go with a higher average gift amount. So it might be something that you want to think about. How are you testing your regular giving prompts, your asks at that level, to reflect the circumstances we're under at the moment in the cost of living crisis, and obviously to improve donor retention too? So finally, we're going to come to T, which is around tailoring your emails and your content through personalization and segmentation. And I just wanted to begin with saying, obviously, I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you're well aware that personalization, for example, in subject lines, we have seen anyway, really increases the open rate of which people open your emails. And there's a wonderful example from Andrea. She was sent an IGM UK, and obviously you can see she opened it. So that's a wonderful, wonderful news. But today I want to go a little bit more in depth than just about personalization in subject lines, but also to go more in depth about segmentation and personalization, and how we could potentially use it, or you could potentially use it in your own charity's case to improve donor retention. So why is this important? Well, basically, the State of Modern Philanthropy in 2019, they did some research, and they said, how long does it take for somebody who's already given a gift to make a second gift, or from the first donation to become a regular donor? And of course, this is also true from your supporters. I don't know what you think, but actually the results are really, really interesting. within the first 45 days that when if someone gives the first donation, or they give to become a regular giver, or to give again. And so just to put that into practice, we found that this was true as part of our welcome journey. We're going to go back to that. Because we had to adapt our welcome journey to increase donor conversion. And so being honest and transparent, we set up this welcome journey first of all, and we were a little bit disappointed because we were thinking, do you know what? This isn't actually getting the conversion that we want. We want to improve our retention. And so we were like, well, how do we adapt this? How do we amend our welcome journey based on what the fundraising data says so that we can increase conversion and regular giving and one-off donation? So although I proposed that welcome journey to you at the beginning, we actually amended that from what we had originally. So 2 big elements. Number 1, we set up that kicker email, which followed the first email on day 1, because we knew that there would be higher engagement rates and open rates when a person's just signed up. So you might want to think about how actually are you engaging with people when they first come into that stream. And we saw really, really good results from that by sending a kicker email to those people who hadn't opened it. We've also changed our case study email. So we originally had a call to action, which was around learn more about IGN's work, learn more about modern slavery and trafficking. But we found actually that didn't really lead to greater conversion and engagement. We changed that to a donation ask, which also included a one-off donation ask. And we saw some great results from that. So I think what I'm trying to say here is, even if doesn't seem to be working at the moment in your welcome journeys or your marketing journeys, don't despair, don't give up. Amend, test, change them to see actually if you can improve donor retention and those types of things. Because it always happens to all of us. We don't always get it perfect straight away, but keep battling on, and I'm sure you can see improvements. Going on to other things that we did through segmentation as well, we've really seen the importance of specific monthly propositions within our campaigns, and that particularly being based on previous giving patterns. So not unsurprisingly maybe, but we've seen that when you give fuller and more explicit an understanding of how someone's regular giving might change lives, they tend to give more. It might seem obvious, but actually giving them examples and really giving them specificity in those asks has made a significant improvement in monthly giving. And then we also have wanted to think about supporter retention from those points of how do we retain them? How do we encourage people to keep being regular givers? And particularly at this moment in time, we really think it's important, as I said at the beginning, to make sure that our supporters know that they are valued, that they are loved, and they're supported. And our supporters at IGN UK are absolutely phenomenal. So how do we do this? Well, for us Freedom partners who are regular givers, we committed to sending them regular updates every 3 months from people across our organisation, so that they could see the impact, the difference that their regular giving was making in the lives of people across the world. And that was every 3 months. And we saw open rates go even significantly higher because of that, and also the way that we tailored that to our audience. And also we committed ourselves to IGN UK to be transparent and open with people, but also to thank them and to really know that they are just amazing. And so we send annual impact reports, which basically aggregates the number of donations and the value of the donation that they've made over the year. So every single supporter who's a regular giver receives a personalised impact report every year to say thank you for what they've done and the amount that they've done. Just showing that even though this might be a time of crisis, we can still show our supporters, you know what, we want to provide an outstanding supporter experience for you. We want to go the difference because you've gone a difference for us. We want to make sure that we are treating you with the respect and dignity that you deserve as well. And these are some of the results. Over the last 3 months, we've seen a retention rate of 99.75%. That means our churn rate is 0.15%, which compared to average rates across the sector are around 2%. So basically only 0.5% of people are unsubscribing from our list, showing that the investment that we had in Salesforce marketing and other digital initiatives is paying dividends. We've also seen our open rates increase by up to 17%, click-through rates up to 8%. And most significantly, we've also seen our regular giving, New Freedom partners increased by 163%. And I think what I want to really say today and to encourage people is that, yes, small changes can make a huge difference and a huge impact. It may seem like those things were simple or just small changes, but they can improve donor retention. And yes, we have pressures with the cost of living crisis. And yes, there are concerns. And yes, we can be anxious. And it's important to be honest about that. But we should also, as a charity sector, be confident. We should be bold. We should be ambitious. And we should even, have a greater commitment to delving deeper into understanding the key moments in our supporter journeys, to look at the latest fundraising data, and to keep testing and testing and testing and experimenting with new ways to improve our marketing. Because remember, even though we are in this cost of crisis, living crisis at the moment, there is always time to focus on retention. Thank you. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Dean. I just love the watch. And I think you already took it to the repair shop because I saw it ticking. So I'm just going to summarize briefly what Dean already said much more eloquently than I can. But the number one thing is test, test, test. Now, as I said earlier, every supporter base is different. So I have the fortune of doing pro bono projects at Salesforce, and I just worked with a database that was all male, and my tests were very different than what I'm used to. So even us here at the headquarters of technology, we do get surprised. So test, test, test. And please try to automate your tests, because if you get too excited about tests, which might be me, it can take a lot of time. So really make sure that whatever you can automate there isn't eating into your time, but that you do get the results. Now, personalization is super important. I am an avid reader of IGM UK's emails, and it's probably because I see my own name. It is a psychology concept as old as time, but it does work. But obviously there's much more personalization you can do. And I think the impact emails that we saw from IGM, where they really specifically target and tell what that person has contributed, really goes into that trend that we discussed at the beginning. And people are used to that as well. They get their Spotify updates, their Fitbits. They want to know what they're doing, and they want that to be specific to them. They don't want a generalized email. And so that means integrations of systems, because the number one reason for us when we talk to many of the charities in the sector is that they're afraid to personalize, because they're afraid that they might send an email to John instead of Andrea, or they're not quite sure if Andrea is a male or a female, which in all fairness, that happened to me once. So personalization really relies on trusted data. And so it's really important to have those basics right. And so last but not least, that brings us to silos, and data silos also extend to teams and processes. So I used to be a fundraiser myself, and I used to beg the programs team for high quality images. I used to wait for that green button for the emergency campaign to go. And if you have all access to the same data, the process and the teamwork is just a lot smoother. So data is also better collaboration, and generally also just happier employees. So I think the last part I want to end with, and Dean already said it so well with the welcome survey, but the most important part in all of this is to know your donors. And so at Salesforce, we have a number of resources that you can do, how you can get to know your donors better, how you can set up journeys. They are all for free. Now that Giving Tuesday is coming up, we also have a Giving Tuesday tip, and we're very original. It comes in your mailbox every Tuesday. So that's it. So we're at the end of our webinar. So we're going to head to Q&A now. I want to thank all of you for your attention and your active participation in the polls. I also want to thank those who had a little music in their house. And we're going to go to Q&A. So let's see. There are quite a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm
There-
going to go. The first question I always get, Dean, is how often should I email? So what do you think?
It's a really, really good question. How often should you email? So as at IGM UK, we actually changed our email frequency quite recently. So we were sending emails to our campaigns and news audience once a month. But we felt that wasn't enough. And actually, we moved to a weekly email frequency. And we've seen click-through rates and email open rates significantly improve. Also because in our email marketing, we are only leading with a single call to action per those emails. So instead of trying to fit in everything in a monthly email, like a newsletter, we decided to break that down and give people really clear calls to actions over what they could do in their emails every week. So although it seems like a lot of extra work every week, actually breaking down that monthly newsletter into strong calls to actions has seen our email marketing improve greatly. So for our point of view, of course, it's different from others, as we always say, but we move to a weekly email frequency.
I think it's also in the cost of living crisis. You are insecure about everything. So you want to feel at least some idea of what's happening, what is control. So that means more communication. Like you need to talk to your supporters. And I think that we see that also across other organizations.
Yeah, 100%. And, it's also a case of like, how do you keep being visible? I think there is, as I say, I wanted to play into the anxious or concerns that we have. Sometimes I think we have this concern, which is if we send too much, they're going to unsubscribe. But actually, I think we also need to make sure that we're visible to people at this moment in time, that they know that that we care about them, that we're being heard. Otherwise, you're sort of just going into the background. So yeah, 100%. Being visible and personalized to people is what we think is the best way forward.
So there's another question from Lucinda. Thank you, Lucinda. What's your method for supporters to sign up and subscribe?
So we have, thanks, Lucinda, I hope you're well. We have a couple of ways that we get people to sign up. So that can either be through our website. We also get people to sign up as part of our social media advertising from lead generation. And those are the main ways, but it also can be through offline. So it could be at events, it could be through direct mail as well. So all different channels, but mainly our ways to increase our email marketing list has come through those people who are visiting our website, but also those people who are coming to us from social media and signing up. That's the ways that we really have seen that increase happen.
Sounds like a great mix. I hope that answers your question, Lucinda. Now, Lara is asking, how did you combat existing donors not feeling cheated with no incentive? And I'm guessing she gets the A/B test with the chili bottle.
Yeah.
Did you receive any feedback?
So that's a really interesting question. Thank you for that. So the way that we set it up, basically, because we're really proponents of Salesforce Marketing Cloud, is that through the A/B split test, there is a function which allows only around 5% of people to receive an email before it's sent to a bigger proportion of your audiences. So when we did those tests, we only did it to about 5% of the total population of our email marketing list. So in the case of when you're talking about are they being cheated, that would only happen to a small proportion. So we could do a smaller test first of all, and then realize what was the winner. And then we were able to see which one worked. So to the question, I don't think most people would have recognized it because it was a significant enough proportion, but it was a smaller proportion. And so during this time of cost of living, it might be worth thinking, instead of sending out your email marketing straight away to everybody or just doing a 50-50% split, perhaps a day before you could send half the one email, 2 emails to 5% of your audience, see which one works, then send that one out, rather than thinking and waiting for the winner with the bigger proportion of your audience. So in answer to the question, I don't think it was realized, but it was a really good clip rate, right? And we then decided obviously to do it to our wider population, email population.
That's a really good tip. It's good that we get to highlight that one.
Yeah.
So thank you. So there's Rebecca. If someone donates on the first ask, and I'm guessing in the welcome journey, will they still receive all the follow-up asks?
It's a really good question, Rebecca. No, they won't, because the way that we set up a journey is that they will get exited from that journey when they become a regular giver. So again, one of the really good tips of Marketing Cloud is that once somebody's fulfilled a particular criteria, for example, in this case, become a regular giver, they get taken off that journey and then put into another journey, which is a regular giver welcome journey. So no, to your answer question, they would not receive other asks. When you say other asks, they might do in the future, but not that welcome journey. Yeah,
that makes total sense. I finally have a question I can answer myself. So what do you create the welcome survey and journeys with? Do you use SurveyMonkey or something else embedded within the email? Dean.
Yeah, really good question. We currently use Typeform. And so we use Typeform as part of that. So we have a subscription to Typeform as a monthly subscription. And then from that Typeform, we then put in that direct regular giving ask. So we use Typeform as part of that.
And so Typeform is an ISV, an app on our App Exchange. So with Salesforce, the same way you have on your phone and App Store, we have a lot of companies that are there, and you can integrate it automatically with Salesforce, so you don't have to do anything yourself. And we ensure that security is top-notch, what you're used to from Salesforce. And so Typeform is one of the great apps that we have, and they also have a video ask feature, so check it out. Next question is Holly. Is there a minimum number of subscribers for A/B testing to be relevant and effective? Oh, I like that question.
Yeah, really, really good question. Thanks, Holly, for that. So I would say that you want to, it depends, of course, on the size of your list. So it doesn't matter about the number, but I would say it matters about the percentage. We would say that in order to understand an A/B split test, you need to have at least 5% of your population that you're looking at. That's what we would say, so that you can send to 95. Of course, other charities might want to do that differently. They might look at statistical significance, for example, or p-values, these types of metrics. But in short, we look at least 5% of that total email subscribers to do an A/B split test from. Of course, you can do more, you can do less, but I think going less is a little bit, is not as significant as that. So I would say about 5%.
I hope that answers your question. We have Neil here. He says he missed the amount of donation that was recommended after all the research when asking online.
Yes, of course. Thanks, Neil, for that question. So I think, again, it depends on your charity. So what I would do is I would analyze what your average regular gift is if you're talking about regular giving. So you should go with that as your control. So if your average gift, regular gift, is around, let's say, £15, go with £15. But then you might want to make sure that you might want to do one which is higher to a certain audience, or one that's lower. Our research showed, and I think probably as any fundraisers will know, if you give someone the option to pay less or to donate less, they probably will take it. So our donation, our testing basically showed that people are more likely to give a donation at a lower amount if you give them that option. But I personally don't think that's necessarily the right way. I think you should look at the control variable, which should be your average regular gift, and then go from there and test it. But again, it depends on what your goals are. If you want more regular givers and you think, actually, I'm okay to have them at a lower amount, then go for a lower amount. Test those things, optimize it, and go from there. But look at your average regular gift, I would say, or regular average or one-off gift as well.
Thank you. That's a great answer. So we have Jamal here, and he says, does your welcome journey depend on whether the giver has consented to email marketing? I know the answer there, but
yeah, 100%, Jamal. Really good question. So yes, we need permission. We need consent to put people onto a marketing journey. So by GDPR regulations, we would not be able to send those people that welcome journey So in answer, yes, we have explicit consent for people to market to them about our campaigns and news and fundraising updates. Yes.
And so a little reminder just to put your questions in the Q&A and not the chat, because you are all very engaged today, which we are absolutely loving, but it's great for us if we get some all in the Q&A. I don't want to miss any of it. So if you have put it in the chat, please put it in the Q&A again so that we can get to your question as well. And so Rosie is asking, when you are doing a B test, do you look at the actual conversions as a measure of success alongside open rates in CTR? And if so, do you ever get contradictory results? One version of the email results in a higher CTR, but in a lower conversion rate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really good question there. So we test the success of our emails by 3 main metrics. That's number 1, open rates, 2, click-through rates, and 3, conversion rates. So we're looking at all those metrics when we're analyzing email success. And when I say conversion rate, I'm meaning actual donations. So if we're sending the donation. So we're able to track that through the mechanisms that we have at IGM UK. So we're able to test what particular email converted best. So we've got that tracking set up. So overall, our key metric would be our donation conversion rate, because that is ultimately the thing that interests us most. We want to make sure that we convert more regular givers, more one-off donors through that point. But you're quite right. Sometimes we find these great anomalies. So for example, you could have a really good open rate, but then you have on an email a less significant click-through rate. But if your goal is to ultimately convert people, you need them to click through. So what we tend to do is to place more priority first on conversion rate, followed by click-through rate, because that's ultimately the key metric that you want, because you're understanding the determinant that someone is actually doing something active, and then the final priority is open rate. So we think that open rates are less important than click-through rates and conversion rates. But yes, we do sometimes see anomalies, and sometimes you see amazing things like, well, that email that was sent to that audience converted better than that email that went to that segment, and it's all interesting. As I say, you never quite know, so that's why it's important to test and test and test and to do that. So I hope that answers your question.
I think also with the changes in some of the privacy of our phone providers, there might be differences there as well. So yeah. There is a question that is multiple time all over this Q&A, and it's Dean. How do you come up with ideas for what to test?
Very good question. So we're always thinking from a point of view of goals and conversion. So my role is to ultimately make sure, how do we support people to convert and to become more actively involved? So we would look at things that would want people to convert in the main way. So there's things around, as I say, calls to action buttons are really, really important for us. So you might want to test as I say, those things that we tested around the call to actions that I showed. But I would also say, don't be frightened over testing a load, because you don't really know what works until you do it. So if you've got copy which you think, do you know what, that could work as a call to action in an email and that could convert, put it down, test it. Because you never know. So to be honest with you, to your answer is, we kind of sit there, we think through those ideas, and then we put them in practice and we see which one works. And it may be we think, oh, well, actually, we suspect that call to action will work better. So we actually thought that become a freedom partner would be better, because we had some research which said people are actually really interested in what a freedom partner is. But actually, the results showed I want to protect children today work better because it was an analysis. So in answer to your question, I would start to think through what type of things could be tested. So open rates, calls to action, sender profiles is just a start, different online prompts, but at the same time thinking to yourself, don't worry so much about overthinking it. Test it and then see, rather than trying to have a long list and then shortlist it by the actual testing, rather than thinking or assuming what might or may or may not work. Hope that answers the question.
I think that's a really good answer. I'm going to do a little reminder that you can also vote on the questions in the Q&A. We're getting a lot of questions, but we do end this webinar at the hour. We don't want to overwork Dean today. So please vote up your questions. So the next question got already 4 votes. It's from Freya. Do you have any recommendation for what to prioritize for charities who are only starting to implement an individual giving strategy?
Yes. So of course, that's talking about individual giving. So that's a wider than just obviously digital. I would say that you would need to, first of all, look into your audience. So I think it's very difficult to give exact answers from my point of view, but I would say that you would need to do some audience segmentation. So for example, if you've got in your audience the majority of mass fundraisers, then your individual giving strategy would surely infer that you want to make those mass givers mid-level donors as a stage. Or maybe you've got mainly corporates or major givers. Then you might want to say, okay, well, I want to make sure that we focus on a more high net worth individual giving strategy, which may lead to more conversion. So I would be hesitant to say that there is any general principle about how you should do your individual giving. I think you need to delve deeper into your own data around individual giving, see who is giving to you, how you might increase those donations, and then go from there. Because at the moment, obviously with new audiences, it's more difficult and costly to get new audiences involved. Looking at your own donor base, and of course this is why it's so important, data is so important and your donor data is so important, because you can analyze what is working. So see what your existing supporters are doing, and then maybe from there with your individual giving strategy, you might work out how you might want to level up those existing supporters. That would be my advice.
And we're almost at the end of the webinar, so this is going to be probably the last question from Louise. Voted up with 3 votes. With the rising cost of living, are you thinking of changing the language and or the frequency of your asks? And if your question wasn't answered, we will definitely get to you by email, or you can always contact us, so don't worry. But we're almost at the end. So with the rising cost of living, are you thinking of changing the language or the frequency?
Yeah, a really good question, Louise, and thank you for everyone's questions as well. Sorry if we didn't come to you today, but if there's more, I'm sure there's going to be follow-up or with charity teaching and things like that. So happy to answer those questions. Louise, I think that's a really good question. And I think we are, if I'm going to be honest, I think we're still adapting and amending where we stand on that. So we are testing at the moment whether we need to put in our email marketing and communications around the cost of living to make people aware that actually it is a difficult time and being sensitive. So in general terms, we don't have, at the moment, our data is not showing that we should be changing. Of course, you've seen the data there, people are converting. Our unsubscriber rate is okay. So we have no reason to believe that we should change from our email frequency every week, or that we shouldn't change our ask. But I think it's a really, really profound point that, look, what worked for this week might be different next week, and people's circumstances. And again, that's that respect and dignity that we need to give to our supporters. So we're testing wording, Louise, basically around whether or not that's that sensitive nature of the communications, and particularly when it comes to existing regular givers as well, or maybe even ceased regular givers. We're being really sensitive over what we're saying about that. But really good question, absolutely.
And Dean's colleague Abigail is here in the chat. So if you would like to know anything more about IGM UK, or if you want to follow them, great point. They're on Instagram and other channels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, good plug there, Abigail. So if you want to know how this works in practice, come on to igmuk.org, our website, and follow us on social media as well. There's a little plug there.
And Abigail is telling me you're way too digital for an analog watch, so we'll fix that after the webinar. I want to thank everybody who is here, and I definitely want to thank Dean. I was a huge fan before, even bigger fan now. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And I hope everybody enjoyed the webinar, and we'll do the next webinar that we will be doing with Charity Digital. So thank you and have a lovely afternoon, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you for closing that, Andrea. Thank you to everyone for joining. Hope you have a lovely day.